There's more than you can carry, Harrison? Dad didn't know where to look for the eggs, did he? He didn't know their hiding spots. Looks like we're going to be making some pasta.
Yeah. Will we use duck eggs for pasta?
Duck eggs make the best pasta.
Oh, wow. I can't even count all of them.
You can't even count all of them.
Can't wait to drop. Be right.
Welcome back to Homesteading with the Zimmermans, where we work hard and play hard on our little corner of land in Iowa. My husband and I were born and raised Old Order Mennonite, or horse and buggy Mennonite, as some refer to them as. And although we are no longer part of that culture or community, we are intentional about passing on the old-fashioned skills of our childhood to the next generation. Good morning. It is day 2 of our spring break, which is why we are getting such a late start. It is almost 9. It's a little after 9 a.m. We have just finished barn chores, and our project for today is to use up all these duck eggs that our ducks have laid in the past couple weeks. So we have 4 Muscovy hen ducks and 1 drake. And we actually, our introduction to ducks a couple years ago was with the white meat ducks. I think they're pekins, P-E-K-I-N-S. Maybe that's pronounced pekins, I'm not sure. And a friend gave us some that she bought at Tractor Supply. She gave them to me for my birthday, and by the end of that summer, they were laying eggs. And true to what everybody on the internet told me about, those eggs made the best pastries and pasta that I've ever made. However, those white meat birds were so messy and so noisy that we just knew that we didn't want to overwinter them. So we harvested them and ate them, and we just decided that ducks weren't for us. However, a friend of ours, when I was telling him about our experience with the ducks and how we decided to harvest them, he said, oh, you should try the Muscovies. He said they're good mothers, they're excellent layers, and they're not noisy and not messy. And so he hatched some out for us, and sure enough, we love the Muscovies. We overwintered them. They are not messy. They don't actually need to splash in water every day. They will if it's available, but they're not messy. They don't make a big mess out of everything, and they are excellent layers. We have 4 hens, and we're getting 4 eggs every day. Now, the hens instinctively know, even though they are good mothers, they instinctively know that it's too early to hatch out babies. It's still too cold because it's the middle of March. So they're laying their eggs and leaving their nest every day. However, the last couple mornings it's been well above freezing, and we've had to chase the mama ducks off of their nests to get the eggs. So here in a couple weeks we probably will stop gathering any eggs that are under them and allow them to raise some babies. And hopefully the cats won't get all the babies. But today we are going to make egg noodles, as my family calls them, or pasta, and we are going to store the pasta for use later on this spring. My one recipe calls for 1 whole dozen of egg yolks and a half a dozen of whole eggs. So in the description, I'm going to put my master recipe, but don't fret if you see me double and tripling the recipe to use up all these duck eggs and get a lot of pasta on our shelf for the future weeks. Okay, so 1 dozen egg yolks, and I'm going to save all the whites. You're funny.
Do we want the whites?
Yeah, we'll save the whites to make angel food cake.
Angel food cake is made out of egg whites?
It sure is. Well, the thing is, duck eggs have a lot harder of a shell.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, their shells are much harder. That's good enough. Now, see if you can... Okay, wait, Kendrick. Wait till he's done with his.
Okay, this is not one. You gotta crack it like 10 times. And the skin is hard.
Mm-hmm. So there we go. I counted all my eggs, and normally I would just mix these up with the flour, but because I have such a large amount, I'm going to mix all the eggs together before I add them to the rest of my ingredients. So for one recipe, I need 6 to 7 cups of flour. So because duck eggs are a little bit heavier than chicken eggs, I am going to say that I need 7 cups of flour for one recipe. So this is a 2-cup measuring cup. So I'm going to start 2, 6. Are you okay?
Yeah.
And that's 7.
Come and get your breakfast.
2, 4. I made like 2.5 recipes according to the eggs that I had. I need 1 teaspoon of salt per recipe. So 1, 2, 3 teaspoons of salt. Okay, don't use your hands more than you have to, okay? So for each recipe, I need 3/4 a cup of water. So I'm going to make 2.5 recipes, and I'm going to add the water to my eggs. For each recipe, I need 1 tablespoon of oil. The original recipe just says vegetable oil, but I'm using tallow. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to use 4 of oil. Now, these ingredients, like most of my recipes, aren't going to be exact because I know what the dough is supposed to feel like, so I can adjust as I go. But if you're beginning, if you're just beginning, I will have the exact recipe in the description for you. And I'm going to use my immersion blender and mix these liquid items together again. You're going to need a real big hole like this. Make a big pond. You ready? Ready? Here we go.
A yellow pond.
Whoa, flood. Okay, let Mom do this, okay? My guess is that we're going to need more flour.
Oofda.
So when we would have noodle making day at home growing up on the farm, my grandma and grandpa would come in their horse and buggy early in the morning, and Mom had been up before anybody else.
These are noodles?
Yep, they're going to be noodles.
I thought it was dough. Yeah, I thought it was angel food cake.
Oh no, we'll make angel food cake with the egg whites then.
Like the red beef.
Anyway, Mom got up before anybody else and made the noodle dough because the noodle dough has to rest a little bit before you can turn it to noodles, right?
Which mom?
My mom.
Oh.
Mommy, Pop, your grandma. And then right after breakfast, Grandma and Grandpa would arrive and we would start, after our chores, the noodle dough had rested long enough, and we would start making noodles, and we didn't stop until every flat surface was covered with drying noodles.
Was that your favorite day?
It was a fun day. Okay, here's the thing. You may scoop some more flour in for me.
This much?
A little less.
This much.
Yeah, pour it right on my hands. Not quite all of it. A little more. Little more. Woo! Okay, we'll make that work. Look how nice and yellow that is. Okay, I think I'm going to need your stool because Mom is short and I can't reach.
Well, I can reach.
I know, but if my shoulders get too tired.
Yeah, I get that off.
Yeah, go wash it. Yeah.
Mom, rub it, rub it, rub it, rub it, rub it, rub it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so your dough, your pasta dough, should feel like a homemade Play-Doh. And if you have added too much flour, just add another egg or a little more water. Here, I need some more. Can you sprinkle some more? And if it's sticky like this, you'll want to keep adding a little more flour.
I made it flat.
Mm-hmm. So now that our dough feels nice and spongy like Play-Doh, we're going to let it set for the gluten to develop for a minimum of 3 hours. And we're going to cover it tightly. I have tried covering the bowl with, like a wax paper wrap, but I have found that it works best to wrap it up tightly, either put it in a plastic bag or cover it real tightly with saran wrap.
It's like a messy.
Okay, get back.
Messy.
You have work to do. No more playing with flour, okay?
Okay, one more.
Boys, you must obey.
Okay.
Okay, start scrubbing that. Use the metal scrubber. Spray it all loose. All right, there we go. I should weigh this pile of pasta dough. Okay, we are going to do a little cleanup. And this is the type of mess I expect when I invite them into the kitchen to help me. But it's okay. We're all going to work together and clean it up. So while we wait for the gluten to develop in our pasta dough, we are going to enjoy some time in the garden. We are more than a month earlier than what we normally garden, but the soil is dry enough and the temperature is okay for us to plant some cold weather loving crops. Okay, we are getting ready to turn our big pile of dough into pasta. And if I were my mom and grandma, this is the stage we would have been at by the time we were done with our morning chores and, ready to do our morning housework. So, and then we would already be done. But now it's after lunch and we're just finishing up, but that's okay. The other time frame that you could use is if you could mix your dough in the evening and refrigerate it overnight, and then in the morning when you get up, you just need to put it on your counter for an hour or so to let it come to room temperature, and then you'd be ready to make your pasta. That way you would get an early start to the morning that way too. But just remember, if you refrigerate it, you probably will need to give it an hour or so to come up to room temperature before you start turning it, before you roll it out. So we are going to use my Weston pasta machine. When I make a single batch of pasta, you know, and I'm not going to dry it, I just make it for fresh eating, I have learned that I like to roll it out by hand. But today is not a roll it out by hand kind of day. Today is a all hands on deck, let's crank it through the machine kind of day, isn't it? Yeah. So the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make little golf ball sized balls for us to work with. You can be pretty generous with the flour, Hadassah. Okay, so we started out with rolling each of the little balls, we coat them in flour, and then we roll them on the fattest setting. Just one time, Kendrick. We roll them through the fattest setting one time, and then we coat them in flour again. So we now have it on setting 3. I think this is where we go bring in another pair of hands. So this is on setting 3, and this is about how we want them. Okay, so if you've been here from the beginning of our YouTube channel, you may know what I'm going to do next. But if you're new here, this might come as a surprise to you. So before we can cut these dough sheets into our pasta, we need to let them dry. So you can do it one of two ways. You can let them lay on the table for 2 to 3 hours, and pasta dough dries very quickly. So then they will be partially dry and they'll go through your pasta cutter much quicker. Or you can do it like my mom and grandma taught me, and you can iron each piece just a tad with a low iron, and in this way you speed up the drying process. If you don't want to iron them and you just want them to be a little easier to run through your pasta cutter, just let them lay for, I'd say, an hour, maybe 2, and they'll be dry enough where the pasta cutter will cut them thoroughly. But I'm going to iron each piece, and the kids are going to run them through the pasta cutter for me. So you're going to have a low iron. And you can see how much drier it is. And that's how we're going to run them through the pasta cutter. Okay, so I'm going to show you, let's do the narrow one. I'm going to show you how nice Oh, there was Play-Doh in there. So this is how, so over here at the end, right here, you can see where the pasta dough was still really wet and wouldn't go through the cutter. And over here is where it was dry and it goes through the cutter perfectly. And here is another example. I'm probably going to end up throwing this one out because there was Play-Doh in there. But you can see where it was too wet to go through the cutter. Now your wider noodles will go through the cutter better than the narrow noodles. So, but I just used this narrow one to show you. And we will likely be making the wide noodles just because they are a little easier and less fragile once they're dry than these tiny ones are. Okay, so when you're ironing, I ended up turning my iron up to high. The more comfortable you get with how dry they need to be, the higher you can turn your iron, and then the faster it'll go. So I have my iron turned to wool, and we're really cruising along here with these now. Thanks. So then we're going to take the pasta upstairs where we have spread some clean sheets on 2 beds that nobody is using, and we're just going to spread them out so they can dry. So now we're just going to let them dry here. Alright, we are done. You boys ready to take the last 2 trays up?
Which one's the longest? That's what I'm looking for.
So this is our second bed full of pasta, and this is a top bunk that nobody is sleeping in right now. And we're just going to let them dry here for a couple days until they're very brittle and break easily. In the summertime, when we'd make noodles at home, we would sometimes turn a fan on them because, you know, summertime the humidity is higher. But right now our air is very dry, and I'm just going to let some windows open during the daytime, and these should be dry in a couple days. So it's time to make some supper, and while we were making the pasta today, everybody was telling me their favorite pasta dishes, and chicken Alfredo is the one that was mentioned most often, so that's what we're making. I started with a bit of brown butter, and we're going to add our garlic to that. And I'm not really measuring anything tonight, but basically what I'm making is like a triple batch of like a garlic cream soup. And I will link the recipe for my cream soups in the description. And I'm also going to add chicken broth and cream. So this is my brown butter, my garlic, and my flour. So next I'm going to add my chicken broth. It's actually turkey broth. We're going to add some salt and some black pepper. So these are some of the very first noodles we made today. And they're fairly dry already. So I'm just gonna steal some for our supper. So my cream of garlic soup is thickening. So chicken Alfredo sauce or Alfredo sauce is very, very simple. I'm going to add cheese to mine just because I have plenty of cheese right now. But really, you can make it with butter or even any kind of fat and garlic and milk. You can use chicken broth. You can make it with very simple ingredients. And I have, in our leaner times, before I was, bringing so much milk to the house each day, I've often made chicken Alfredo without cheese, without Parmesan, without any kind of cheese. But because now I have abundant cheese, I'm gonna add a lot of cheese to this Parmesan sauce, to this Alfredo sauce. A popular question is, how long do you cook your homemade pasta? And the answer is, it depends. It depends on how dry your pasta was. It depends on how thick you rolled your pasta. Just cook it until it tastes right to you.
We thank you, Lord, for food on our table. We thank you for loving us, for watching over us, and we thank you for this beautiful night.
When we have homemade pasta on hand, we use it for all types of pasta. So even though this isn't spaghetti noodles, it works as spaghetti noodles. And I wanted to show you that the pasta has been drying for about 24 hours now. And I don't know if you can hear this, but it does crack like pasta. So always when it snaps like that and I'm like, oh, it's dry, I always let it another 24 to 48 hours just to continue drying it, in case there's some spots that they were a little thicker. And how long you dry your pasta completely depends on your climate. If you live in a place where the air is very dry, it's going to dry faster. If you live in a humid climate, it's going to take longer. Tonight, we are gathering up some pasta to make our spaghetti. So when I make my spaghetti, I brown my ground beef and then I add water to my ground beef. So now I have like a grass-fed beef broth. And we're going to bring that water to a boil. And then my goal is always for the pasta to soak up almost all of the broth as it cooks, so that I don't have to drain any of the pasta, any of the liquid off before I add my pasta sauce. So this is boiling. And this way, my spaghetti is not only filling bellies, but it's nourishing bodies as well. So we're getting really close. A lot of that beef broth has been absorbed by the pasta. Well, some of it has been evaporated as well. So we have packaged up all of our pasta. I like to use glass jars because there's less breakage, but you can absolutely put them in bags. I've done that in the past, but right now I have an abundance of glass gallon jars because one of our milk cows is dry and we're not getting as much milk on a daily basis as we do at sometimes when we're milking 2 cows. So the other thing that I wanted to show you is always when I think the pasta might be ready, I let it one more day. And you want to wait until it snaps. I don't know if you can hear that. Maybe if I get closer to my mic, you can hear how it snaps. But you should be able to hear an audible snap when you break it. And then it is shelf stable. The other question that a lot of people ask me is about bacteria because there's raw eggs in the egg noodles. Bacteria needs moisture to grow. So when your pasta is dry, it's just like your dried fruit or dried vegetables or anything else that you dry to preserve. If there is no moisture in it, the bacteria is not going to be able to grow. So one of the things that I'm going to show you, and I do this with my dried fruit, are just turned tight. But here is something you can do. This is a 2-quart glass gallon jar. And what I'm going to use is my 4 jars vacuum seal kit. And I will link this in the description for you. But what you're going to use, you're going to put your lid on, and this is my favorite lid. This is the 4 jars lid. And then you're going to use this, slide it down over. All right, Kendrick, are you ready? And then, here, let me show this little tool. Then there's this little suction tool, and you're going to seal that right over the hole. All right. Pull it until it goes so hard that you can't pull it anymore. Okay, let's see if it's sealed. You're going to remove this, and that lid is sealed. And let me show you. This is how I do my dried fruit. Did you hear that? That is how sealed that was. The other thing is if you seal this tight, there's no bacteria entering. And there's lack of oxygen in here. So this is more of a long-term storage. Even though these that I just turned tight, these will keep for a good 6 months without any problem. All right, you ready to go again, Kendrick? Okay, let's see if it's sealed. Yep, that's sealed tight. All right, Harrison, you want to do that one?
Ooh, can we do
No,
this?
that's for a small mouth jar. That's for a regular mouth. Okay.
So that goes right there.
Yep. Maxwell, do you want to do one too? Okay, slow down a little bit. Slow down. Slower. Pull up. Don't bang it down so hard. Pull. There you go. Is it going real hard? Okay, let go.
A little bit, yeah.
Good job. Okay, I'm going to redo this one and let Maxwell do it, okay? You want to hear how tight this is sealed? All right, Maxwell, you want to see if you can seal this one?
Again? Yeah.
It's pulling up that seals it, not banging it down. So push it down, then pull. Don't bang it down so hard, just pull it up. There you go. Is it going hard?
Yeah, it's pretty hard.
Yep, that's sealed.